But thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I feel like this week is a perfect time to be talking about and screening a documentary on Stephen King, because it's his birthday this week.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, actually in 2 days, on Wednesday. Yeah.
And I guess the obvious sort of starting question would be, what was your first experience of Stephen King on screen? Can you remember what that was?
The first film I saw, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, the first adaptation I saw was The Green Mile, actually. And I remember being completely taken by the story, the characters, and the rhythm. Actually, it became my favorite film. And still nowadays, I really connect deeply with this film because I think it's so beautifully, going through all the story. I think it's a beautiful adaptation, actually. And yeah, that's the first film I saw. And then I discovered the TV series, The Stand, which I really enjoyed, the one that Mick Garris did. And it was like not very long after seeing The Green Mile. And then I saw for sure the first version, and and yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of the films, actually. Somehow it's how I came to do this documentary, because I saw a couple of documentaries about Stephen King, and I thought, well, that's a shame, because we don't talk about cinema at all, and a lot of people know Stephen King because of the movies, actually. So I thought it could be great to have the director's point of view. So I talked a little bit with the producer, and I told him, okay, let's do this. Let's do a documentary about Stephen King, but see his work through the eyes of the filmmakers. And so we sent like 10 emails, something like that. And in a couple of days, we had all the directors saying, okay, I'm in. I'm okay to talk about my work and the process of adaptation. So it was really great. It was a great adventure. It took like 2 years. So it was a long adventure as well, and very fascinating. So yeah, here we are.
I mean, for somebody whose favorite film was The Green Mile, getting to talk to Frank Darabont must have been like a really exciting experience.
Yeah, it was it was like very stressful at the beginning, because I was like, okay, I'm gonna see Frank Darabont because I really love what he does as a director. I mean, not only the Green Mile, but Shawshank Redemption, which is an amazing movie, and The Mist. I mean, The Mist is so great. I was like in such a stress, and then we arrived, and he was smiling, very such a nice man, actually, very warm, and yeah, he put us at ease very easily and very quickly. And we talked for more than 2 hours, and it was so great. Actually, it was so great. And at the end, he told me, okay, so did you get the chance to talk to Greg Nicotero? Because Greg Nicotero worked on a lot of Stephen King adaptations. He's doing the new Creepshow now, which is a TV series. But even before that, he worked on The Green Mile. He worked on Misery. He worked on Romero's films as well. So having Greg Nicotero was something that we really wanted. And thanks to Frank Darabont, who sent an email to Greg and said, okay, you should meet them to discuss a little. We had Greg Nicotero. So yeah, meeting Frank Darabont was really like life-changing for us and for the film.
And there's countless Stephen King adaptations. where did you start when you had to slowly sort of like filter it down to, well, these are the ones that we're going to talk about? Because, I guess it's 100 minutes long, but it could have easily been like 300-400 minutes long.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about it because we didn't want to have some kind of encyclopedia kind of film, because those films usually don't, well, they work because it's so great to know everything about and to see all the movies, but it's very difficult to have a string when you are if you want to talk about every movie, because you won't be able to connect everything. So from the beginning we thought, okay, there are some major films because they had a lot of impact actually on pop culture. For example, The Shining, it was obvious that we had to talk about The Shining. We had to talk about films that really were important as well in Stephen King's life. So we tried to make a movie that was talking about some of the major adaptations. We didn't had the chance to talk about all of them, but focus on a few, and depending on the directors who agreed to meet with us as well. So we had to make choices regarding those different things that we came across.
Yeah, but I think one of the positives is that it does focus on things like The Green Mile and Dr. Sleep, which is a more recent one, which other documentaries that cover Stephen King, I guess, sort of shy away from. Dr. Sleep's quite recent, but I think a lot of emphasis is put on his horror work, whereas you've got, Shawshank, The Green Mile, and some of his other sort of lesser horror titles. Was that an important aspect for you as well?
Yeah, and I think Dr. Sleep actually is very interesting to talk about, because it's an adaptation that is really major in the sense that Mike Flanagan really had to manage something very difficult, because Stephen King didn't like the Shining adaptation from Kubrick, and Mike Flanagan had to direct the sequel of The Shining. So he really had to work through this adaptation process and really make choices, because for sure when everybody thinks about The Shining, they think about what Kubrick did, about the rug, about everything like this. And so you have all this imagery in your head, and at the same time you are going to, if you don't respect it, you take a huge risk because of the fans, because of everything. So I think it's very interesting when you talk about adaptation to talk about Dr. Sleep, because it's a very difficult one to pull through. And Mike Flanagan did it brilliantly, I guess, I think, really. And he did Gerald's Game as well. And this one was so hard because when you know the book, you're like, okay, how are you going to do Gerald's Game? It's like just one person tied to a bed and thinking about a lot of stuff, and he did a brilliant job, I think, really.
Yeah, and my final question is to do with the sort of the opening titles. I guess it's a bit different to what you would expect from a documentary. It's everything Stephen King on screen. I mean, how much work went into that? Because it looks like a lot of fun, because there's lots of cameos and Easter eggs. I mean, that must have just been a Stephen King fan's dream.
Yeah, really, it was. Actually, we shot in Bangor, Maine, so that was really like an experience, really documentary style, because we didn't want to shoot like in California. It would have been so much easier somehow because of just one thing, the weather. so yeah, it would have been easier, but we really wanted to have this documentary approach, even in the small fictional introduction that we had at the beginning. And since day one, actually, I wanted to make this small introduction because I really wanted to, for the viewers to go really, and the audience to really go into Stephen King universe and to really start the documentary with like, okay, you are entering now a new universe, something like a little bit different. So I reread every novel Stephen King had wrote. I reread everything, and I tried to find a lot of references, Easter eggs. The more, the better. And yeah, we had to build everything. We created an entire crib shop in Orono, near Bangor, actually. And we were a small team, a small crew, and we had to do everything in like 10 days. We had 10 days to wrap it up. So it was a challenge, but it was very, well, it was thrilling because we had so many great actors. And yeah, it was such a great human experience. I mean, because they were so sweet and kind, and they did a wonderful job. And yeah, it was like the best, really.
Yeah, I think it works really well, and I will thank you for your time, and I wish you best of luck with the screening at Fantastic Fest.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.